Mary Ann Cotton, she's dead and she's rotten, lying in bed with her eyes wide open. Sing, sing, oh what should I sing? Mary Ann Cotton, she's tied up with string. Where? Up in the air, selling black puddings a penny a pair. Mary Ann Cotton, she's dead and forgotten, lying in bed with her bones all rotten. Sing, sing, what can I sing? Mary Ann Cotton, tied up with string. Mary Ann Cotton has the questionable distinction of being Britain's worst female serial killer, and her estimated tally of murders would remain unequalled by either sex until the 1980s. She is strongly suspected of committing 15 murders, either for gain or to enable her to marry, or both. And a staggering 21 people who were close to her died over a 20-year period. These comprised 10 children, 3 husbands, 5 stepchildren, her own mother, Margaret, her sister-in-law, also named Margaret, and 1 lover. She was born Mary Ann Robson on Halloween of all days, the 31st of October, 1832, at Low Moorsley, a village near the town of Hetton-le-Hole in County Durham, to a Methodist couple, Michael and Margaret Robson. Soon afterwards, the Robsons moved to nearby East Rainton. Her father was killed in an accident at Merton Colliery when she was 8, leaving Mary and her mother in abject poverty. Mary Ann bitterly resented this and vowed that she would never again live like this as an adult. At the age of 16, she went into domestic service. She married for the first time in July 1852 to a 26-year-old miner named William Mowbray, and moved with him to Cornwall, where they lived for around 4 years. Here, Mary Ann gave birth to 4 children, all of whom died in their first year of life. All the deaths were officially recorded as being from gastric fever, a common enough diagnosis at that time. William and Mary Ann returned north, moving to Sunderland, where William was injured in an accident and was cared for at home by his wife. In January 1865, at the age of 33, William succumbed to the same intestinal disorder, lots of this gastric fever going around, and Mary Ann collected £35 in life insurance. Mary then took a job at Sunderland Royal Infirmary as a ward attendant. In this role, she had free access to the hospital's drug stocks. While working at the infirmary, she met George Ward, a patient there, and the couple eventually married on the 28th of August, 1865. George too began to get symptoms of poisoning and was to remain married just 15 months before he died on the 21st of October, 1866. The official cause of death recorded was cholera and typhoid. Getting nicely into the swing of things, Mary had also taken out a life insurance policy on him, as well as being the chief beneficiary in his will. The next target was James Robinson, a shipyard foreman who had recently lost his wife, Hannah, and lived in the Pallion suburb of Sunderland. He advertised for a housekeeper to look after his 4 children. Mary Ann moved into the house on the 23rd of December, 1866. Perhaps, somewhat predictably, 3 of these children died from the inevitable gastric fever within a year. James married Mary Ann in August 1867, but things didn't go smoothly. He became suspicious at his wife's insistence that he insure his life. The marriage didn't last long, as John threw Mary out after discovering that she had made several unauthorized withdrawals from his bank account, and having enlisted the help of his children, pawned a number of his possessions. He couldn't have known at the time, but what a wise decision that turned out to be. A furious Mary Ann then went off to, quote, look after her elderly mother, Margaret. Needless to say, poor Margaret did not survive the experience, soon succumbing to gastric fever as well. Mary Ann's next husband was another widower, Frederick Cotton, whom she married bigamously on September the 17th, 1870, and by whom she had become pregnant with her 6th child, Robert Cotton. The family moved to Johnson Terrace in West Auckland, County Durham, and Mary busily took out life insurance policies on all of them. It was reported that her company of choice was usually British and Prudential Insurance. And predictably, sure as night follows day, illness and death would plague the Cotton family. First, Frederick's sister Margaret died after Mary found out that Frederick would receive £60 in her will. This was followed by 39-year-old Frederick himself on the 20th of September 1871. His death certificate gives the cause of death as typhoid hepatitis, inflammation and failure of the liver, which could have been natural or caused by arsenic. The next to succumb was his 10-year-old son, Frederick Jr., followed quickly by the new baby, Robert. This just left 7-year-old Charles Cotton, Frederick's second son by his first marriage. The unfortunate child moved with Mary to number 13 Front Street in West Auckland, a 3-story property still standing today. Meanwhile, she had also rekindled a relationship with former lover 35-year-old Joseph Natras, who moved into the property soon afterward. When gastric fever came a-calling this time, Mary collected twice a £30 life insurance policy on Joseph Natras and an undisclosed sum in his will. Young Charles Cotton, who had somehow managed to survive this long, despite having had a policy taken out on him too, was seen merely as an impediment to Mary's love life. On the 6th of July 1872, she offered him to the local workhouse. They would not accept him without his parents also being admitted, so clearly another way of solving the problem had to be found. Gastric fever, as usual, provided the solution. However, this time, Mary messed up. The manager of the workhouse, Thomas Riley, who had interviewed Mary, became suspicious when he heard about the death of Charles on Friday the 12th of July and reported it to the police. After all, the boy had been perfectly healthy 6 days earlier. Mary Ann, now blissfully unencumbered by children and relationships, began an affair with the local excise officer, Mr. Quick Manning, by whom, as usual, she became pregnant. However, after so many deaths in quick succession, at last, the authorities were beginning to grow suspicious. After Charles Cotton's death, Dr. Kilburn ordered a post-mortem and discovered a large amount of arsenic in the child's body. Arsenic tends to deposit itself in the fingernails and hair, even when it has left the stomach. The symptoms of arsenic poisoning are in many ways similar to gastric fever and include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, fever, cramps, lethargy, convulsions, and dizziness. By this time, there was a reliable method of testing for arsenic. In 1841, a German chemist named Hugo Reinsch published a description of a method whereby metallic arsenic was deposited on copper foil from hydrochloric acid solution. The Reinsch test, as it has become known, was used in this case. Mary Ann was arrested on the 18th of July 1872 and charged with the murder of Charles Cotton. She was remanded in custody by the magistrates to stand trial at the Spring Assizes of the following year. She was pregnant at the time and would give birth to a baby girl in January 1873, Margaret Edith Quick Manning Cotton. The police obtained permission to exhume the bodies of those who had been close to Mary Ann and called on the services of Professor Thomas Scattergood from Leeds University, a leading pathologist of the day, to examine them. The bodies of Natras, Charles, Frederick Jr. and baby Robert Cotton were all exhumed and found to contain arsenic. It could not, however, be proved that Mary Ann had administered it. She was charged with 4 murders, but was only to be tried for the murder of her stepson, Charles Edward Cotton. This was standard practice at the time, as the defendant would be sentenced to death if found guilty of a single murder. If the first trial resulted in an acquittal, a second charge could be brought. Mary was tried before Mr. Justice Archibald at the Durham Assizes of March 1873. She pleaded not guilty and was represented by Thomas Campbell Foster, who put forward the defence that Robert had been poisoned accidentally by arsenic contained in the green floral wallpaper, which formed a poisonous dust when cleaned with soap. This was not as fanciful as it may sound today. Arsenic really was used in some wallpaper dyes at the time. But the prosecution, led by Sir Charles Russell, swiftly pointed out that at least 10 of her alleged victims had never been in the, quote, arsenic room. Sir Charles Russell was also able to show that Mary had actually purchased arsenic. Thomas Detchen, an assistant chemist, told the court that, quote, I remember a woman 4 years ago coming to my master's shop between 2 and 3 p.m. on January 21st and asking for 3 pennies worth of soft soap and arsenic. She gave her name as Anne Mary Booth, and that is the person who I see in the prisoner's dock. She wanted to kill bedbugs on beds and linen. I told her that I could not sell her the mixture because she needed a witness, but I could sell her an alternative mixture, which we make without needing a witness. She said that she would rather have the first, and again I said, not without a witness. The trial lasted 5 days, and the jury brought in their verdict after an hour's deliberation. Mr. Justice Archibald passed sentence upon her, saying, In these words I shall address you. I would earnestly urge you to seek for your soul that only refuge which is left for you in the mercy of God through the atonement of our Lord Jesus Christ. It only remains for me to pass upon you the sentence of the law, which is that you will be taken from hence to the place from whence you came, and from thence to a place of execution, and there to be hanged by the neck until you are dead, and your body to be afterwards buried within the precincts of the jail. And may the Lord have mercy upon your soul. On hearing the sentence, Mary Ann cried out, and she had to be carried from the dock in a state of collapse. Surprisingly, there was a degree of public sympathy for Mary, and a petition was got up for a reprieve, possibly because of her baby. The Home Secretary declined this, however, and 5 days before her execution, baby Margaret was taken from her and placed with a couple for adoption. On the Saturday before the execution, Mary was visited by her stepfather, to whom she proclaimed her innocence. William Calcraft, assisted by Robert Anderson, had been hired by the under-sheriff to carry out the execution. There had been some discussions as to whether she should be hanged strapped to a chair in case she was in a state of collapse. The pit beneath the trapdoors was apparently widened to accommodate this, although ultimately the chair was not needed. The execution was set for 8 a.m. on the morning of the 24th of March, 1873, and Mary requested only a cup of tea for breakfast. Throughout her time in prison, she had refused religious counsel, but during her last few hours became most devout and contrite and told the Reverend Mountford that she might have killed the boy. It is said that Mary Ann made the warders wait to escort her to the gallows while she brushed her long black hair. When she was ready, she let the hangman tie her wrists in front of her with a leather strap and place a further restraint around her elbows and upper body. Wearing a black and white checked shawl, Mary Ann walked calmly to the gallows. Once on the trapdoors, the white hood was placed over her head, followed by the noose. 2 male warders supported her during this preparation. Mary Ann's last words were, quote, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. O Lord, have mercy upon me. Anderson drew back the bolt, releasing the trap from under her, and she dropped no more than 24 inches. For a moment she was still, presumably stunned by the impact of the drop, but then began to struggle violently for some 3 minutes before she dangled lifeless in the pit. The black flag was raised over the prison to show the large crowd outside that the sentence had been carried out. Just before 9 a.m, a plain coffin was brought into the yard, and Mary Ann carefully lowered into it, together with the rope. The prison surgeon, Mr. William Boyd, certified her death and gave the cause as asphyxia at the inquest. Following the inquest, a plaster cast was taken of her face, and she was buried at the western part of Durham Prison at 2 p.m. Now, over 150 years later, there have been suggestions that some of Mary Ann's alleged victims died from natural causes or reasons other than poisoning. Researchers estimate her victims numbering anywhere from 15 to the full count of 21 people who died, while living with her or near her. 10 of her children by various husbands, 3 of those husbands, 5 stepchildren, her mother, Cotton's sister Margaret, and her lover Natras. Theories of motive range from the collection of insurance money to the desire to rid herself of people she felt were, quote, obstacles, or most likely a combination of both. Because she maintained her innocence to the end, we'll never know for sure exactly how many victims Mary claimed in her endless quest for wealth and security. Mary Ann Cotton's name soon entered the folklore of the region's history, and as the decades passed, she is best remembered in a rather creepy nursery rhyme. Mary Ann Cotton, she's dead and she's rotten, lying in bed with her eyes wide open. Sing, sing, oh what should I sing? Mary Ann Cotton, she's tied up with string. Where? Where? Up in the air, selling black puddings a penny a pair. Mary Ann Cotton, she's dead and forgotten, lying in bed with her bones all rotten. Sing, sing, what can I sing? Mary Ann Cotton, tied up with string.